The Knowledge Keepers. An original short story by Jared I. McGee. Shintuk couldn't say that he was looking forward to his induction day. Yes, it meant that he would enjoy full rights among the keepers. He could wear the ostentatious pong feather linked to his nose by an equally ostentatious chain of golden links. He could do what all young men dreamt of: visit the women's vulvas and receive visitors from their bulbous honeycombed dwellings as well. This, above the myriad other benefits, rights, and duties the elders swore were so very important, is what sang to the young men of the people. They were human, after all, no matter what the outsiders' jokes and jibes would have one believe. Gifts of this day aside, Shintuk felt this day to be one of the worst he had ever seen. Why? His friends sounded like the swarms of small, furry Sintach, the way they echoed, "Why, Shintuk? Why, Shintuk? Why, Shintuk? Why, Shintuk? Why, Shintuk?" In reality, the answer to all those whys was pretty straightforward. Responsibility. Duty. Selflessness. Shintuk knew he was of age at 19, but he still did not feel ready to give of himself to the extent required of every keeper, and those duties were important beyond measure. He thought of the forthcoming hours on end of reading, of writing, of memorization. The charts, the equations, the languages. Oh, goddess help him, the languages. More than anything else, his coming to majority would mean beginning his pursuit of Mundisen. This would literally be one of his primary pursuits for the remainder of his life. Every language, from every tribe, from every people that took the time to write anything down. The keepers held the belief that, even more than content itself, the systems of writing and speaking that made up any dialect, pidgin, slang system were the key to keeping knowledge alive. The peoples of the Yuntras, the dense warm forests that surrounded the cities of the people, had 26 words for rain. That's right, 26. According to some of the wizened, other peoples that lived in far-flung Arctic climates had even more words for snow and the skylights that many of the young keepers longed to see but would only ever read about in tomes. Many a young keeper sought to be one of the elite outbounders based on little more than those storied colored flashes. At any rate, that would be Shintuk's lot from here on out. No, not travel to the exotic locales of their world. Not seeing the skylights explode as he held some pale-skinned native girl against his breast, coupling with those they studied being one of the perks, if not mandates, of the outbounders. No. Shintuk, by virtue of what he was told was a superior intellect and talent for knowing, was doomed to strictly intellectual exploration, confined to the shimmering green and matte brown forts and lyceums and halls of the keepers. It's not like he did not appreciate his luck. The goddess had blessed him after all. She had given him this brain of his, this tool that made his instructor's jaws drop and the ire and envy of his peers rise up, viciously at times. Though his father had served the people as one of its most notable outbounders, she had given him his uncle Cassio to raise him and help him through the labyrinthine tests and ceremonies that navigated the younglings to what they were meant to do when they became full keepers. He could, if he weren't feeling so dark and doomed, list off hundreds of her blessings that he, in all rights, should, and, if he were being truly honest with himself, was grateful for. But again, he was not feeling much like counting blessings today of all days. He looked out his back door to his complex's open grotto, to the water clock. 10. So, he had 3 hours until he was to report to the Bicam to begin his highly symbolic day and night of coming into his full rights. Shintuk could not help but to think back to his years of childhood ignorance. Even for those first 2 or 3 years after he began his training at the schools, he still had that sweet taste of not knowing in his mouth. After that was stripped away from him, he began to visit the humid yuntras in order to bathe in the ignorance of those that populated the jungles. Sweet really was the word for it. To see them bowing to the sun and lighting the kintras vine's leaves to gain favor with the spirits of the trees. That loophole of idiocy in their archaic belief system alone was like a minnis cake with the sweet foam on a cool, breezy Belton night celebration. Burning the leaves of their gods to get their gods' attention. Setting someone on fire did seem like a good way to get their attention, he guessed. Knowledge was heavy. What a thought. Shintuk did not come up with that lofty thought. No, that was his outbounder father. The man that he only knew through celebrated texts and the hushed inquiries from other, less prolific keepers. The man that had chosen to go into the wider world, never to return. So very kind of him. Not for the first time, Shintuk wondered why outbounders never came back. Well, he knew that it was their duty to collect and send back knowledge for as long as they drew breath. Such was their oath. Such was their responsibility. But an outbounder had never once in all the records of the people returned to the island. Not one. The laws of probability demanded that at least one individual in all these millennia would have thought to swing by, even if it were just for a pass-through to drop off some of their work for quicker dissemination among the people, for more provisions, for, well, goddesses Jinsif, for a visit with their only child they had never met. It really did bugger the imagination that it was a never, a zero, a statistical anomaly that refused to adhere to the laws of existence. So, there it was. Knowing was almost a prison unto itself, and the job of the keepers was simply to know. Everything. Not for the first time, Shintuk wondered what the rest of the world off this island might be like. Surely it had to be brutal, savage, ignorant to the point of danger and backwardness. Some of the Outbounder chronicles did seem to back up this assertion, but just as many did not. Those latter tales were troubling to Shintuk, as that put the Keeper's idealized place at the center of the world, and as the freest people and tippity-toppest point of the pinnacle of progress and achievement, into a bit more suspect light. If those same struggling peoples of the far north and far south could live, love, survive, and generally exist without all this knowledge, then what in the 9 Shintras were the Keepers doing here on this island? What was the point? Another thought came unbidden, an echo from his absent father's masterwork as an outbounder.
Knowledge without practical experience is a hollow affair.
That was the real reason people looked at him strangely. The best and the worst outbounder. The most true to and rebellious against the people and their job as the keepers of the knowledge of the world. Oh, his father. He looked back at the water clock. He really did have to get moving. All this brooding wouldn't stop the moon from rising and setting, the sun from making its climb and then heading back to the celestial chambers. Wouldn't stop this ceremony in its tracks or make the weight of responsibility evaporate. Shintuk heard the soft padding of foot on jade tile. He looked up and out his window that looked into the lined corridors of his part of his assigned compound. And Linsis was hurrying toward his home. Shintuk shot up. Wow. Tradition was to wait until after the ceremony to come and celebrate an ascension of a peer together, be it in pairs or the more common communal sport rutting. But here was Anlinsis, far from Revolvis, and slowing to enter his quarters respectfully, which meant that she must be quite eager, beyond happy for him. Must have had her eye on him for a time now. This was going to be amazing. And her eyes were wide, the whites flaring. Her chest was heaving, the turquoise stones in her long black hair tinkling against her amber necklace and scraping ever so slightly against the golden circlet holding back her bangs and serving as a little halo or a crown for those that did not know her prolific work or her rank. She sucked in several lungfuls of air and croaked out,
"You have got to leave now. Pack your things. Cassio's been killed. We're running before the Alderas come for you." "They are coming for you."
Thank you for listening to The Knowledge Keepers. The backing track for this story was taken from the Free Music Archive and is titled I Am a Man Who Will Fight for Your Honor, an original piece by Chris Zabriskie. It is being used under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. The drums here at the end were taken from freesound.org. User RTB45 uploaded these sounds, and they are being used under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 Unported license. Thank you to both Mr. Zabriskie and RTB45 for providing these sounds to the world and to this story. That's it for episode 19 of Prose. As always, please keep your eyes peeled for the next episode coming next week. Until then, farewell.